I thought a lot about, there are a lot of things in our labs that are advanced technologies. And since when you're doing the vision thing, you can get to choose anything that's far out and talk about it. But I chose to sort of think about things that are pretty near term, but are transformational in terms of what we can do for our customers. So I wanted to invite up on stage Steve Clayton, who's a colleague of mine, to help me with some of these demos. And we want to start off first by talking about this phenomena of Internet of Things. We all know, we talked about the fact that there's going to be 200+ billion sensors. And when you really think about it, it's really the Internet of your things, right? So when you're talking to a customer, they have these things in the field. And for the first time now, in a cost-effective way, they can put compute on them and collect data back from them so that you can reason over it. Now, that all sounds great, but for what purpose? The purpose is, of course, business model transformation. Think about what an elevator company now can do when you have the ability to have real-time access to the status of all the elevators in the field that you have and the service contracts, the insurance on those service contracts that you can write. It can be transformative to any customer of ours in terms of the business model. And that is something that now we enable by bringing together Windows embedded solutions, our intelligence system service in Azure, which allows you to collect that data and put it into and process it in real time. And then we have this Azure machine learning service, which is an amazing service, which I think previewed at this conference. And that service allows you now to do advanced predictive analytics. Because we all need these data scientists, but you also want to have the power of what we have when we do speech recognition or voice, or vision, or even Bing, and take all that sophistication for applied ML and make it available for every one of the data scientists that's in your organization so that they can do these advanced predictive analytics. So to show you some of this in action, Steve, why don't you take it away?
Sure. Morning, Satya. So we're going to start inside of ThyssenKrupp's global asset monitoring system. So the dashboard you see here has been built by ThyssenKrupp with their partner CGI. Now, ThyssenKrupp is a global elevator company. They have 1.1 million elevator assets around the world. And what anybody inside of their organization can see from this dashboard is a real-time view of what's going on across that landscape of assets. So this literally is real-time data coming from sensors inside of elevators that's being pulled into the Azure Intelligence System Service and then populated into the dashboard. So we have an orange circle up here, an orange traffic light in the Pacific Northwest. So we're going to drill into this particular one. And you can see as I scope down on the map into this region, the data is changing in real time beneath us. So the alert that we have is right down here in the Virginia Mason Athletic Center. The Virginia Mason Athletic Center, it turns out, is the training facility for the world champion Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks fans? That's always a crowd pleaser. And what you can see on the dashboard now is that we have a view into the schematics of the layout of that building. We have the real-time information of the elevators moving and in action. All of this coming from sensors into the Azure Intelligence System Service. As I scroll down a little further, we can see some more details. So what type of elevator, where the elevator is located. So we have some freight elevators, passenger elevators. The thing I'm really interested in is this predicted health of 70%. And you talked about machine learning. And this is really where we can get to the kind of the gold mine of this data, if you like. So we'll drill into that elevator that we want to take a look at. It's the field access elevator that has a predicted health that we want to take a look at.
This is a solution that CGI built.
Absolutely. So CGI built this in partnership with ThyssenKrupp. Anybody inside of the organization is now starting to get that kind of real data culture that we've talked about, be able to access information in real time. So we can see the type of elevator. This one is a freight elevator. We can see the model. We can also see some of the real-time data around the landing status. So we can say this elevator is being called most frequently from the ground floor, as you might expect, but also real detailed sensor level details. So what's the average door close time? What's the average door open time? All the types of things that start to move their business from being a reactive maintenance mode into proactive. And that's ultimately where they're trying to drive their business into being much more proactive. The two things I'm really interested in on this particular part of the monitoring system is that predicted health of 70%, and then beneath that, you'll see there's a critical alert that's coming from Azure Machine Learning. Now, the predicted health arises from taking all of the previous data of events and issues that have happened with the elevators and then running a machine learning model so we can start to learn, well, why did that event happen? So we do two things with machine learning. We reason over the data to find out why did something happen in the past, and then we can use that same data to predict, well, when might that happen again in the future? So we'll move over into the Azure Machine Learning Workspace, into our Machine Learning Workspace here, and you can see the model that we've run. So we're taking data at the top in a CSV file, feeding it into something called a multi-class decision jungle. Inside of the Machine Learning Workspace, we've got world-class algorithms, the type of algorithms that are being used inside of Cortana, inside of Bing, so we can start to apply reason and learning on top of this data. And then we train the model and we score the model. Ultimately, what that results in, if we visualize the output of this model, what this is telling us is that they're able to predict by using machine learning, looking at past data, we can predict with 75% accuracy.
And this is breakthrough stuff, because think about it. In fact, the first time I saw this kind of tool was when I was working in Bing engineering, and we needed to drive productivity of our own relevance and data scientists. And so we built all this tooling to do applied machine learning at scale. And the vision that we've had is, how do we take all of that and make it available? Because now data science is not just for the consumer internet companies. Data science and the tooling around it is for every industrial internet application. And we have that unique capability of taking what we learned in a very different segment and applying it now through the partner ecosystem to pretty much every industry vertical with advanced analytical capabilities.
That's right, and where that really pays off for ThyssenKrupp is what you see on the dashboard right now. So at the moment, we have a predictive maintenance warning. We have a schedule of when we're planning to do maintenance on those elevators. So currently planning to do the scheduled maintenance on the 24th of the month, but by taking that machine learning, by doing predictive analytics, we're able to say, actually, we need to send an engineer out 3 days earlier to carry out that maintenance because we can predict with 75% accuracy that an issue is going to arrive. So that's where it really starts to change dramatically ThyssenKrupp's business, moves them into this proactive maintenance mode and out of the reactive maintenance mode.
Great. Now, that gives you a flavor for what kind of an application you can build. For an opportunity like Internet of Things, because I think that this is one of those opportunities over the next 10 years will play out in a pretty big way. You can think of this as the new class of tier 1 applications that are going to be born in the cloud, where people are going to rendezvous their data from their field devices, reason over it, and the business models that you can have, those models that got created, you now have a continuous model of upgrading and improving that model. So the business model-wise, you're just not just building a project and leaving. Your project is a project that continuously drives business transformation, because you can expose that model as a set of APIs for the various applications that use it. But one of the other things that we also see is, as there are these new classes of tier 1 applications, we also see this explosion of mobile apps. You are seeing that now in every enterprise. So we want to enable you, especially on the edges where a business unit or even an end user wants to build an application rapidly. Think about even this elevator company scenario. Say you want to spin up a field service app that's very specific for a particular role in a particular business process scenario. You want to have access to, in fact, all the APIs in your SaaS application. So you want all the APIs with data inside of Dynamics, inside of Office 365, inside of this IoT application you built. You want to have access to it, and you want to be able to churn out these apps, which are very task-specific, at a pretty rapid rate. And that opportunity is something that we want to enable. So we built a tool called Sienna, which is available on the App Store for Windows today. And our vision with this tool is to bring this next generation of rapid application development for the mobile-first, cloud-first world, where you're able to take SaaS applications that you build as well as customer users and the data behind them and convert them into apps that end users themselves can build. So why don't you show us Sienna?
Sure. So we're going to carry that scenario forward. We're going to build an application that's our field service engineer. We want to get rid of these things and start to have more of these things out in the field. So mobile devices, mobile applications that are cloud-first, mobile-first applications. So I'm going to start inside of Project Sienna, and very quickly with my PowerPoint skills and my Excel skills build an application. I can connect out to a data source. I've got multiple different data sources here. Data sources that are out on the web, things like Facebook, things like SharePoint inside of the organization. I've also got applications, as you would expect, like Dynamics, Coursera, so a whole set of different back-end data interfaces I can connect to. My data is sat at the moment inside of Azure, my Azure mobile services. So I'm going to select to import my data. That imports from the cloud. And I've got my actions, my sensors, and my jobs. So we'll give that a second to import. OK, so I've got actions that I'm going to carry out. I've got sensors, and I've got jobs. Let me just make sure that we've got our data fully imported. And then we'll start to build our applications. This is my first screen. So I simply click over. I'm going to say I want to make a connection to Office 365. So this is something that's coming in the next preview of Sienna, the ability to connect directly into Office 365 and build applications on top of that rich platform. So in Office 365, I'm going to add my meetings. This is my shared calendar. It's the database of jobs that my engineers are going to go out into the field and carry out. We'll add in a second screen. So then I'm going to create a connection from this first screen over to the second screen. So as my engineer selects that job, and we'll do our first run of the application. So it's now a very, very simple application, but in a minute, I've built the rudimentary basics of my application. So I click from a job, takes me to the second screen. But now, let's start filling out the capability on that second screen. And that's where we get to replace the clipboard, and we get to replace the camera that my field engineer is currently using. I'm going to drop a control onto the page, and that control has a camera. It has a couple of buttons that we're going to have on the side. We're just going to shift these around, make this a little bit more usable. You drag these out to the edge, make them slightly larger, because these are going to be the buttons that my engineer uses on that mobile device. And then we're going to start to wire our application up to the data that we have in the back end. So what I'd like to do first is to make sure that the job that I'm about to take a photo of is the one that the engineer has selected. So simple Excel statements that...
I mean, this is just the exact Excel syntax. So if you can build an Excel spreadsheet, you can build this app.
Exactly. So you can see now if I go back to run my application, click on job 1022, it appears in the screen below. 1023, it appears in the screen below. So we've done that first element of wiring up our application. Let's go back to screen 2 and continue building out the app. So I want to connect these, wire these up to my data. So this is going to be the actions that my engineers carry out. So they're going to replace things, move things, align things. And then they're going to perform those actions on a set of sensors. So we wire up to a set of sensors. And we're now getting very close to having a finished application. A couple more things I just need to add in. I want my engineers to know which type of elevator that they're working on. So we'll make a connection, again, back into our back end. So I'm going to do a simple lookup statement. We're going to look up jobs, where the job ID is equal to... So for anybody who's kind of familiar with Excel, you're obviously familiar with this type of stuff. So simple package selects, and now I've got my Sky Shuttle elevator selected up there. We'll run the application again. So if I click on a particular job, so I've got 1022 as a Sky Shuttle 9000. The final piece is it would be really nice if my sensors over there on the right-hand side of the screen were mapped to the particular elevator that we've selected. So we'll do one final piece of syntax, and then we'll run our application. So in this one, we're going to say we want to filter the sensors based on the package that's currently selected up there in the top left of our screen. So this wants to be equal to, I think it was label 4 that we had up there, and the text that we have in label 4. You can see that I'm not really a developer, truly.
Yep.
OK, so now if I finally run the application, I'm going to select job 1022. I've got a set of sensors on the right-hand side, 1024, a different set of sensors. So let's finish this job, and we'll take some photos. So imagine I'm out there doing my elevator inspection. So that's my elevator. I'm going to align the sensors and the control panel, click on Save, and that gets saved back into my back-end data. So in a short space of time, built an application for those mobile field engineers.
And again, this is not about building a disconnected RAD tool. Think about the entirety of your own practice and your own business model. You build these great applications. Think of them as tier 1 applications. You expose them as a set of APIs and platform capabilities. Then you can enable the entire organization that you're working with, the end users, the business units, to in fact build more applications on the edge using those APIs in combination with other SaaS APIs. That's the future. That's the kind of platform sensibility that we've had as an ecosystem always, and we get to do that again in this mobile-first world. So that's pretty exciting for us, and we're in the early days in the feedback. In fact, Fujitsu has taken this product and really built out an entire service line where they now think about thousands of apps being built, not just one app or one engagement. And that's, I think, a way forward for many of us. The next thing we want to talk about is we want to move from more of the application development to the kind of productivity tools that can be transformative inside the organization. One of the things that you really need to break through the silos of the various applications and the data contained within them is search, because search is beautiful. If you know what you're looking for, you type in the question, especially on the web. Because of the web graph, you get back, your 10 blue links, and it's great. And we've taken that and really advanced it with things like Power BI now, where you can ask natural language queries even inside of an organization on all your data. But still, search starts with the assumption that you know what you're looking for. There needs to be a better way, because the ambient intelligence that's there inside of the organization doesn't surface. The knowledge doesn't surface or is not discoverable. So we built this product, Dwelve, to really enable organizations to become true knowledge organizations, because they can now, every individual in their organization has the power to discover information and be more productive. So we want to show you a little bit of Dwelve.
So Delve really is a great example of this notion that we've talked about of ambient intelligence alongside Cortana. So what you see on my dashboard here now, inside of Delve, when I come into the office in the morning, whether it's on a PC or a mobile device, this is what I get to see, the information that matters to me in a beautiful way, laid out contextually for me. So nothing on this page is irrelevant to me. And this is a completely different world to 10 blue links. Information is starting to find me. There's intelligence built into the system. We start to apply machine learning again. So everything on this page literally is relevant to me. And it's built on top of this thing called the Office Graph. We talked about the Office Graph back at the SharePoint conference. And what the Office Graph does is brings together people, conversations, and content in a truly beautiful way. So we take a look at some of the things that we can do with Delve that really start to bring it to life. It's just a fantastic information worker tool that is that ambient intelligence. I can do things like look at the information that's being presented to me. So what happens here is the Office Graph knows which meetings I've been in. So it goes into my calendar. It can understand which meetings I've been in, what content was presented. So no longer do I need to search for that information across file shares, across SharePoint, locations in the company. It simply just finds me because it's relevant to me. I can do other interesting things, like say, what documents are trending around me? The Office Graph knows who I work with. It knows what documents those people are working with and says, hey, Steve, here's a bunch of documents that your friends, your colleagues, your coworkers are working on that may be interested to you.
Like a Facebook news feed, except it's for the Office Graph, not your social graph.
And I can search across anything inside of Delve. So as I start to type in Bill, now there are many Bills inside of our organization, but it immediately knows the Bills I work with and scopes down to Bill Burr. So if I click on Bill Burr, then I get what you might expect, an organizational hierarchical view. I can see who Bill's manager is, I can see who we share a manager with and who Bill's direct reports are. But I can also see some other very interesting things, activity views, views that you would never get normally inside of the organization. So I can identify who Bill works with and that I might want to work with. I can identify who we both work with. So I can start to understand these implicit connections inside of the organization that previously I might not have been able to see because of the power of Delve and the power of that Office Graph.
And especially when you think about in a multi-device world, we use these different devices for different things. On the phone, I may want to use Dwelve to just keep up with what's happening. On my notebook at work, I do the work. That notion of having a device family and these experiences is how we think productivity will fundamentally change. Now, the one last thing we want to show you is something that I would say we as an industry have been dreaming about and have been working at ever since perhaps the Second World War, when the first code-breaking technology and great software was used to do that. And since then, there has been this continuous march on technologies like machine translation. And now, in recent times, we have been able to put together what have been three distinct streams of research: machine translation, speech recognition, and speech synthesis. It's not just simply daisy chaining them, but building them together into this one deep neural net that has magical properties. And the first magical property that we are going to use it for is to perhaps solve one of the oldest challenges that we as human beings have had, which is how do we cross the language barrier? We want to be able to provide in Skype a translate service that allows you to speak two different languages and yet communicate without any friction in real time. That's the dream of Skype Translate. And now, this will be the first time we will be testing it in an acoustic model like this building. And we will see if it works. Fingers crossed. Go for it.
Okay, so I actually want to tell you a little story before we get into this demo, because the first time I saw this technology, I knew it was going to change my life. I knew it was going to change my family's life. So I moved to Seattle about 4 years ago, as you know. I have 2 small children.
And people didn't understand your English?
Well, they kind of understand my English. I'm getting there, slowly but surely, you know. So I moved to Seattle, and all of my family is back in the UK. And my mother-in-law is Chinese. And I've known my mother-in-law for 25 years, and I've exchanged about 6 words with her because I don't speak Chinese and she doesn't speak English. But perhaps more importantly, you know, my mother-in-law is over 80.
For some, that could be a virtue, I think.
This was not scripted.
I just thought of it. Go for it.
So the thing I'm really interested in is having my 2 small children. So I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. And wouldn't it be wonderful if in the lifetime of my mother-in-law, of their grandmother, that they would be able to have a conversation with her in the language? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we didn't have flies around? Wouldn't it be wonderful if those 2 small children could sit there in front of the TV and be able to have a conversation in real time in their language, and for my mother-in-law to have a conversation in her language? So we're going to try and see that in action. I'm expecting a call any moment now from a friend of mine, Melanie. Melanie's German, and she has been celebrating for the last few days, as you can imagine. So any second now, I'm expecting a call from Melanie, and here she is. Good afternoon, Melanie. How are you?
Aber nach neuen Melanie, wie geht es dir?
Mir geht es gut. Wie geht es dir?
Well, how is it, me friends?
Sorry, Melanie, say that again.
Melanie, sag das nochmal.
Mir geht es gut. Wie geht es
I
dir?
am well. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. I'm here at the Worldwide Partner Conference with 16,000 partners and our CEO on the big stage. So no pressure.
Gut, danke. Ich bin hier. Aber weltweite Partnerkonferenz mit 16.000 Palmos auf der großen Bühne. Also, kein Druck.
Hast du die Weltmeisterschaft gesehen?
Have seen the World Cup.
Yes, I did see the World Cup. Congratulations.
Ja. Ich sah die Weltcup-Glückwünsche.
Ich könnte gar nicht glücklicher sein. Ich habe die ganze Nacht gefeiert.
I could not be happier. I celebrated the whole night.
In einem einzigen Spiel hat Deutschland mehr Tore geschossen als England in den letzten 2 Veranstaltungen zusammen.
A single game, Germany has scored more goals than England in the last 2 events together.
Very funny, Melanie. I'm more of a cricket fan.
Sie voll Melanie. Ein Cricket-Fan bewegen.
Was machst du nach der Veranstaltung?
What are you doing after the event?
This afternoon, I fly back to Seattle. Then on Thursday, I fly to New York, followed by Miami, then back to Seattle. And at the end of July, I'm going to fly to the UK to see my friends and family in London.
Heute Nachmittag. Ich fliege zurück nach Seattle. Und dann am Donnerstag, ich fliege nach New York gefolgt von Miami. Und dann zurück nach Seattle. Und am Ende Juli werde ich fliegen nach Großbritannien, um meine Freunde und Familie in London zu sehen.
Wow, das klingt nach einem vollgepackten Kalender.
Wow, that sounds like a packed calendar.
Gute Reise.
Good journey.
Thanks, Melanie. Goodbye.
Danke Melanie, Wiedersehen.
Danke dir. Schönen Abend noch.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good night.